Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we have our next session that we'd like to now move on to. And our next session is very interesting because it is going to be on how recent global economic changes affected DieMold industry and how we will adapt over them. Now, before we get it started, may I request the hotel staff to please assist us and help us with this. While we are having this done, ladies and gentlemen, we have the next session and we have a very interesting presentation on this topic that we are now talking about. And it's going to be a short but exciting insight into the topic, the technical session on how recent global economical changes affected DieMold industry and how we will adapt over them. I'm sure that you've also had a lot of questions pertaining to the sessions that have happened. You can consult and speak to all of the pertaining people during the networking breaks that we are going to be doing much later on. So you can be seated, and if you're feeling that okay, a little bit of you've been sitting since a while, maybe you want to stretch yourself. You can get your hands out and stretch yourself. Yeah, we have another few seconds before we begin. Just stretch yourself out. It always helps. It always helps. Trust me. Use both your hands. Stretch yourself. Stretch your neck. Just move your neck left to right. And if you feel a little cold, always clap. If you clap, it generates warmth in your body. It's not proven, but it could be true. Okay, with that, let me invite our gentleman who's going to be taking this session forward. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming on stage Mr. Raghav Prasad, Head DieMold Department, Makino Milling Machine Company Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in welcoming him up to the stage? There you go, sir. So this is front, this is back. Do you need this mic or that's fine?
I'll take this. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Raghav Prasad. I will represent on Makino's behalf and Mr. Yamamoto as well, because it was his presentation and he was supposed to do it, but unfortunately he is not able to make it today. So I will represent him and I will represent Makino on this stage today. Okay, so let me start. So first of all, I would like to thank the entire DieMold industry, including Makino, for this, and including Makino and all the customers or all the suppliers over here, for being a part of the COVID in supporting to the industry, means for all the medical supplies. In supporting for the medical supplies and also the face shields, the masks and all these things. So this stage, I would like to take an opportunity to thank all of you who were part of this session. And then now going to what happened during this COVID. So the first and foremost thing is there were a lot of restrictions. There were a lot of restrictions in terms of travel, in terms of quarantine and so many other shortages of labor, and all these issues were there. So we were not able to work together. There were a lot of situations like this. So now the current scenario is, of course, we have the Ukraine war. But Ukraine war actually brought us to a different situation. Now we have an energy crisis. There's a lot of increase on the oil and gas prices. I think we have spoken a lot about this. Now the material prices have also started going up. The resin plastics pricing has gone up. The steel pricing is going up. But I think this is only the start of the curve. It's going to hit a little more, and it is going to be a newer challenge for us. So what is the current situation? I would like to take the example of the North American industry, of the DieMold industry, to represent and maybe talk globally on this situation, what is happening globally. First and foremost, because of the COVID, things went down, but I think the things are still getting better and better. Especially on the plastic machinery shipments, if you see the global trend, the shipments are increasing. That means there is a lot of increase in the sales and increase in the plastic mold business that is happening in the US, in the North American sector. So this is only an upward trend. So this is very, very positive. So this is going to continue, and it will, means if it is reflecting in one part of the world, it is going to be there in the other parts of the world as well. Similarly, this is a very interesting slide. Here you can see for the last 20 years, every year on year, the average new model of vehicles that was being launched was about 40 vehicles. But recently, for the next 4 years, what US is projecting is about 60 newer vehicles. So this can be because of a couple of reasons. One is the existing vehicles being upgraded to hybrids with some newer technologies, or there are some uplifts or uplifting models. And then, of course, the EV also, and new trends coming up, the fuel cell technology, the EV trend technology. This is also going to give a lot of push for this sector. So there is always a positive side to it. So this is very, very interesting. Next is much more interesting. We are recently noticing that there is a lot of investors investing into tooling companies. Yes, you heard it right. It is not about manufacturing companies. I am saying tooling companies. Because a lot of investors have started feeling that the tooling companies are going to get more and more profitable. So we have taken one of the scenario where a company called Crestview, they have invested into a company called Cybridge, who has taken over 2 other companies. So this means they are seeing the trend. And this has been happening over the last couple of years, last 1-2 years. After the COVID, this is happening. So there are a lot of opportunities. I think over a few years, we also might have a lot of investors who come forward to invest into our industries as well, even in the tooling sector. Okay. So the next important thing was global sourcing. When I say global sourcing, it is not just global sourcing, it is actually global optimal sourcing. We were trying to optimize the procurement because of the price and everything. We were trying to optimize our costing. So based on global logistics, when I say based on global logistics, that means that it is very, very highly dependent on the logistics. If your logistics cost is going to go up, then this is going to create a lot of issues for global sourcing. So, is it still really cheap? Is it still sustainable? It becomes a next question for us. So, one is the freight fare going up over the last 1.5 years. I think we have seen the prices almost quadrupled in the last 1 year. So, there's a lot of delays in the shipment. The container prices are going up. All these things are very, very challenging for us. And next is the blockage. One is, there were some times when we were not able to transport our trucks or vehicles between one state to another state. Similarly, there were a lot of cases globally also where we were not able to ship our materials getting stuck in the customs, maybe because of the quarantine. All these started becoming an issue for us. And also because of our recent war, Ukraine war, what happened was, in one of the plant in Germany who were producing for the EV vehicles, they had a lot of supply coming in from Ukraine, and this really put a halt into the production for about a couple of weeks in the Volkswagen factory, I would say. So US has now changed their way of dealing things. It is not about global sourcing. Now they are thinking about something called reshoring. Okay, reshoring means, again, restarting of sourcing of material in-house within their lands is one thing. So what we start to see is their quoting or their buying of material and buying of quotations itself is reducing from China. And the sourcing from China also has been reducing gradually. So global sourcing has now become something called as nearshoring and friendshoring. When we say nearshoring, it is about sourcing from the neighboring countries or nearby people. And friendshoring is sourcing from people who are very friendly in terms of our business, probably, or even in terms of governmental understanding between the other nearby countries or reputed countries. So this is a new trend. So I want to take this opportunity saying this is one of a new terminology that people have started talking in the European market and the US market on this. So apart from all of this, these are all the other scenarios or geographical scenarios and others. But now I want to also talk about a little bit of technological impacts. What has been happening globally? First and foremost, I think most of you would be aware of this. This is the Tesla Giga casting. So almost 70 different components getting casted into one part. So that means 69 lesser molds. So the number of molds started reducing. So this is not only in Tesla. Of course, I think in India also there are a couple of companies who are trying to combine some of their parts, which means 2 or 3 parts or 3 or 4 parts might become into one part. So that means the number of molds might reduce, but the complexity of the mold might become more and more complex. And the technology that is required to make those parts might get much, much higher. So that is something. And also, we will soon start to see such kind of large molds, large bumpers, large plastics being produced or being required in the industry. Currently, the European market and US market is trying to produce single parts of plastic bumpers, and even the trucks, you can see such kind of large molds being produced. So this is becoming a newer requirement for this industry, that it is not going to be multiple parts. They don't want to assemble it. They want to reduce the assembly time. So they want to make it as complex as possible, but maybe as large as possible as well on the other side. So integration of parts, on one side, we are able to see the Giga castings, but this is mainly due to they want to reduce the assembly cost. When I say reduce the assembly cost, the number of human intervention that is required to assemble the parts, and maybe even the automation that is required to assemble these parts, all these are being concerns. The new thing, what the new trend is going to be, next global trend is going to be the carbon neutral. Most of the OEMs like Toyota, I can say Volkswagen, Ford, all these companies are moving towards something called as global neutral or carbon neutral environment. So when I say carbon neutral, there are a lot of material changes that is also being seen over here. On one side, we were able to see in the past that some of the parts from steel were getting changed to aluminum, to make it much more easier to manufacture and making the cars lighter. But on the other side, recently what is happening is some of the parts from aluminum are getting converted to steel, and they want to do the process by stamping. So this is going to also change. So this is going to make it less carbon neutral, so they want to work towards that. And of course, the reduction of raw material size and space also is going to be a new thing. So this is going to change a lot of things and maybe save energy also. So they want to change to a carbon neutral society. It is being a very important aspect of the globe. And here I would like to say, the DieMold industry, we tool makers are actually in the center of the entire technology. We are the ones who are trying to connect the product design, the molding technology, the injection machine, and the material technology. So if we don't lead the change, I don't think there you can find a change in any of these other 4 industries as well. So we have to take the initiative. Until today, I would say, I really apologize if I'm hurting somebody, but I would say there were a lot of customers who were leading the change. They were saying, this is how I want it and this is how you should produce it. But I think it is time that we also take some steps and then we say, this is how things has to be. And then we request them to adapt to our change also. Unless and until we do this, I think we will not be driving the difference or change in technology in the other areas. So this is going to actually improve mostly on the product, on the cost, quality and deviations. All these aspects we need to consider for ourselves. Without that, I think it might be more challenging for us in the future that is going to come. So yes, during the panel discussion also we had this a very key point, lack of people. But it is not lack of people, it is lack of quality people. That is what we were also discussing. So if I say lack of quality people, these are mainly the areas what we think that, yes, this is the key challenge. One is the designers, the CAD/CAM programmers, you have the assemblers and polishers, and then the machine operators. This is where we face the challenge. But of course, there is one more area because there are some of the companies, the smaller companies, some mid-sized companies where they don't find the next level of mid-management. That is also becoming a newer challenge. But I think India is way ahead, at least in this area, rather than when in comparison with the global companies. So I would like to come to that point, touching upon China, because I think it is very much related for us. We also should understand what is happening globally. So in China, if you notice the graph, this is actually the global population pyramid. So in the first stage, this is between the age group of 20 to 30 years. Actually, there is about 6.8% of the people, okay? But what happens is, this 6.8% of the people, they are always trying to do part-time jobs. They don't want to have a fixed job, they want only part-time jobs. And they get paid enough, they look for such kind of job. Next is between the 30s. The 30s people actually are called job hoppers. We call them as job hoppers, where they take some kind of a small contract job, maybe 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, something like that, and then they keep hopping jobs. So what happens is, these two segments, both the people in the 20s and the 30s, they are not able to have a consistent knowledge. The knowledge growth is also becoming very, very limited. So this has become a new challenge for them in their market. And also, the fewer next generation people under the age of 20. They have very less people. They are about 12% in their entire capacities or strength. So this is also becoming a newer challenge. Now, let us see the global in comparison with all the other tool manufacturing countries. So we are still very, very ahead. I think it is a very good situation for us. Right now for India, I would say between the 20s and 40s, we are almost 20% or 15% at least. So, and also below the age of 20, I think they are about 20%. So this seems to be very, very positive for us. So, sorry. Okay. So this is also very interesting for us. So we might have a very good future in the years to come forward. So in comparison with all the other markets globally. So the other improvement of human utilization. When I said about human utilization, we were mainly talking about the programmers and all these things. So what is human process among manufacturing? Means what is the key process when we talk about our industry of molding? So polishing and assembling becomes a key challenge for us. Most of the people here, I think we are struggling on finding good polishers. I am even hearing some of the people asking, okay, I need some good polisher or polishing people coming in from China or Japan or coming from Taiwan. Is it possible to source such kind of people? This kind of questions also arise to us. So this is the major challenge that we face. But what I would like to say is assembly. When you say about assembly, it is about accurate geometry. What if you get a very good accurate geometry on the machine? Why you want to become more dependent is my question to it. So why don't you eliminate recut, okay? And less benching time or easy assembly time. If you make your parts perfect by accuracy and quality, I don't think you have to go for recutting, because the moment you start about recutting and bench timing and all these things, that is when you lose your profits as well. Similarly, when I talk about polishing, why don't we make it much more consistent surface? If it is a consistent surface, it is easy to polish. Only when it is inconsistent or we have inconsistency in your surface, you find it very challenging to polish. And why don't we go for something like no gouges or no scratches? This is what is my question to it. So in Makino, we have the latest controller called the Professional 6, which has the capability to improve such kind of finishes. So the Super GUI control can actually make the surface much, much better. Even you have some kind of a CAM programming which has, if it has higher tolerances, maybe it has got some gauges, some scratches and all these things, it can improve and give you a much, much better finish. So that is Makino's answer to this. At least in the areas of polishing and kind of rework and all these things, maybe we can give you some solution, a readily available solution on the machines. We have to trust the machines, and then I think you have to move on to the other areas. So when we talk about polishing, also over here you can see we have direct solutions which can give you a mirror surface finish on the machine. You don't have to do polishing away from the machine. So you can do it on the machine itself. So you can see such kind of glossy surfaces. In some of the cases, you can see even on some of the reflector parts, we achieved something like RA of 262 nanomicron. This is on the feed direction, and on the pick direction about 68 nanomicron. So these are something that is already available with us. Maybe we can help you. We can help at least in one area of where you face a challenge. There are other areas maybe you will be able to allocate your available manpower. So what we want to say is Makino's target is to maximize the human skill, okay, for the other areas and be more creative in those areas. So human can be creative in other areas rather than spending so much time on assembly and polishing. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Please remain on stage. Thank you so much, sir, for that presentation. May I please request you join us center stage? May I please request Mr. Paresh Panchal to join us on stage and hand over memento. Thank you, Mr. Prasad, for joining us here for that wonderful presentation, and he's available in case you have any queries or would like to connect with him. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in thanking Mr. Prasad once again? Thank you.